Most people have a friend they can rely on in times of trouble or need, someone they can turn to for an overnight stay. These emergencies often arise because of family turmoil or serious conflicts with a spouse. Personally, I have never had to rely on friends for such support, but in my youth I witnessed my buddies offering their homes as temporary shelter for a few nights. Time has passed since then, and my old friends are now happily married, no longer experiencing the kind of arguments that lead to dramatic confrontations, and no longer taking refuge with their friends. They have realized how important it is to find compromises in a relationship without allowing those situations to escalate into divorce. To be honest, I never imagined that I would be an impromptu alternate airfield again. However, everything changed when Igor called me. I was surprised by his request to spend the night, primarily because Igor had never been a close friend of mine. We had only worked together briefly in the same field. He was interested in the stories of my life and often asked me for advice. Even though he was younger than me, we found common ground and had fascinating conversations while waiting for cab customers. Although I retired from cab driving many years ago, Igor and I continued to communicate until recently. Although our communication was not particularly extensive, we exchanged holiday greetings and occasionally met casually around town. And then the phone rang. "Hello, Pyotr," Igor began with some hesitation. "Please forgive me in advance, but I have a rather impertinent request to make of you, if I may." "If you start with an apology and a request, then the matter is serious," I replied, not waving the situation away. "Tell me, what's going on?" "Peter, can I stay at your place tonight?" "At least for one night." Igor continued, visibly worried and hoping for a positive answer. "I won't be able to come to the dacha today, but tomorrow. Come over. While you're here, we can catch up. It's been so long since we've seen each other." I agreed, happy for the opportunity to chat. I was full of curiosity, not understanding why Igor had chosen to confide in me rather than his parents or friends who lived in our town. When Igor arrived at our house, Masha had already prepared a bed for him in her son's former room. After exchanging greetings, Masha retired to the bedroom to watch her evening programs, leaving Igor and me to chat in the kitchen. It was already about 9 in the evening when Igor, still feeling awkward and apologizing for the inconvenience, began to tell the story of his life. "Do you remember my wife?" Igor began. "We lived together since we started working together. I thought we had a good marriage, though not perfect. We've been together since our days at the Institute. We met while studying, continued the relationship after graduation, and eventually settled down in life. I rented an apartment to live apart from my parents, and even took part-time jobs to make ends meet. You remember, right? We went through a lot together. My unemployment and various hardships never caused any serious conflict between us. Now, at 40-something, I couldn't imagine that our family values would be put to the test. We have been married for almost 18 years. Igor continues. Our children are studying at technical universities. You'd think things are going well, right? But it isn't. But before I explain, let's start at the beginning. The last few years have been average for our family, and for me in particular. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had the essentials: housing, clothes, and shoes. We were able to go on vacations, even if not overseas. A few years ago, we attended a reunion, and that event was a turning point in our family's life. Haley and I were delighted to reunite with former classmates and had a great time reminiscing. But the most meaningful was meeting a man named Eugene. While I was striving to get ahead in life, he made great strides and became what is known as a high achiever, an outstanding individual. We met again for a smoke and had a chance to get to know each other better. During our conversation, I almost started complaining to him about my difficulties in finding a decent job. To my surprise, he responded by saying, "You were so smart back in college. If you still possess those talents, I am willing to hire you. Give me a call, let's discuss this further." He handed me his business card, which made me feel a little awkward because I hadn't even brought it up. The next day I told Haley all about it, and she gave me some straightforward advice. "What do you have to lose? Go out and do it. At least then you'll know what he's offering and how much you'll be paid." After pondering for a day or two, I finally mustered up the courage to call Eugene. I was overcome with anxiety. Our conversation was lighthearted, and I wondered if he had forgotten about our previous conversation or just mentioned it in passing. But no, he confirmed my role and assured me that he would find a comfortable position for me. So a month passed, during which time I left my previous job and joined Eugene. Working in the office was refreshing. There was no dust, it didn't require too much effort, and the salary was quite decent. Unlike my previous job, there were no business trips here. I just got home on time, without any overtime or other complications. However, all this was not the most important aspect. After many years of absence, Eugene and his family and I became close. We often went to visit each other and even celebrated numerous holidays together. If I had taken this job a couple years earlier, maybe I would have put my children in universities instead of technical schools. But as fabulous as my life was, it was not without its difficulties and anxious moments. During a celebration at Eugene's cottage, accompanied by other friends, Haley began to ask Eugene about my work. Her questions became more and more insistent. She mentioned that I had been working there for almost 2 years and asked how I was doing. At first it seemed harmless, but then she asked without joking, "Isn't it time for Igor to get a promotion?" I felt a rush of heat. In our family, it was never discussed, and my wife never complained about our financial situation. We always managed fine. But now, I assumed Eugene would take it as a joke, a joking tease. But his reaction seemed genuine. He replied, "Why not? Let's think about it and discuss it. Perhaps now really is the right time." As soon as we got home, I confronted Haley and asked her, "What's wrong with you? What's gotten into you?" In response, she explained, "You are at an age when it is important to establish yourself as a leader. Leaders are highly valued, respected, and less likely to be fired, especially if a friend recommends them. What do you have to lose? Haven't we been through enough? Haven't you waited long enough to succeed? Now that you have this opportunity, why pass it up?" I pondered Haley's words and realized that she was right. However, I was hesitant to bring it up with Eugene, both personally and professionally. Surprisingly, not even a month later, Eugene himself brought up the promotion. He called me to his office and said, "Remember Haley tried to get you a promotion? Well, there is a new position. She's always been more ambitious than you, ever since she was a student. What do you say? Are you ready? The position will be vacant soon, and I'll make you the new boss." Naturally, I was stunned, either from joy or disbelief, but I agreed without hesitation. However, Eugene only smiled and advised, "Go and manage before your current boss is replaced." Although I wasn't particularly career-oriented, I was happy with the promotion and all the potential it held. I couldn't claim to feel like a high-level executive, but I convinced myself that my life was a success. Financial worries would no longer plague me in my old age, and I would be able to provide more for my children. However, as with most fairy tales, there comes a time when they come to an end, and not all ends turn out happy. Shortly after my promotion and Haley's replacement, I began to notice a change. Not 3 weeks later, the atmosphere at work became chilly. My wife started asking probing questions and suspicions began to creep into my mind. People seemed to be wondering if there was a young woman in our department and if she was married. At first I ignored it. Then I tried to have a serious conversation, but it was useless. Haley just assured me, "It's fine as it is, it's all in your head." Today, as I was leaving work and heading to the parking lot, my car suddenly refused to start. I tried different ways to get it started, but couldn't figure out what was wrong. It was getting evening and I wasn't sure if I should call a tow truck or what to do next. At that moment, Eugene drove by in his car. He noticed my predicament and offered to give me a ride home while I sorted out the car. During the ride, we briefly discussed work and Eugene asked how things were going in my new role. I shared some news, and when we pulled up to my house, I decided to tease him a little. "In a year or two, I'll be on your level, Eugene," I jokingly remarked. To my surprise, Eugene replied with a smirk, "No, you won't reach it." I grinned and asked, "You don't believe in my abilities?" "It's not that," Eugene replied, still smirking. "I just think your partner, Haley, won't want to pay for it later." Confused, I inquired, "What do you mean? What won't she agree to?" Eugene tried to divert the conversation by saying, "I'm just hypothesizing. Anyway, here we are. Goodbye and see you tomorrow." I said goodbye to Eugene and headed for the house, but I couldn't get his words out of my head. What did Haley have to do with this? What did she not agree to or paid for? These questions remained unanswered as I entered my house. Sometimes ignorance really is bliss, though curiosity began to gnaw at me. Toward evening, I decided to approach Haley with my doubts. She looked guilty at first, but eventually told me about the conversation she had with Eugene the day she'd mentioned my promotion in front of everyone. Apparently, Eugene approached her afterward and questioned her sincerity about the promotion. He made it clear that he had a tendency to get what he wanted in life, even resorting to manipulation if necessary. I had been with Haley since my student days and had no idea that Eugene was also interested in her. Haley, however, remained steadfast in her loyalty and thwarted his advances. Nevertheless, Eugene still felt bitter about not getting what he wanted. He offered Haley an unpleasant exchange, a night of intimacy in exchange for securing my position. Igor, I've been thinking and pondering for almost a month now, Haley admitted, feeling a little guilty and trying to justify herself. After technical school, it's a good time for kids to think about universities. And with 2 boys, they'll eventually want to settle down. We may not be able to buy apartments for them right away, but it would be nice to provide for them at least somehow. Remember how hard it was to get a stable job just 5 years ago? And now this opportunity has presented itself. I called Eugene and asked him, will one time be enough? You mean one night? And he replied, even an hour is enough. I just want to make sure I have you the way I wanted you. As I listened to all of this, anger gradually replaced the initial horror and eventually turned to rage. I never would have believed that Haley. I slammed the door and left the apartment, needing some time to cool down, so to speak. I wandered around the neighborhood, immersed in my thoughts. Oh, what thoughts overcame me. First, I decided that tomorrow I would quit my job. Not just quit my job, but quit everything forever. But then I thought, if Haley, so to speak, sacrificed herself in vain, then how will I be able to continue living with my wife? If she betrayed me once, she will surely do it again. But then I wondered if it could even be considered cheating. Anyway, so many thoughts flooded my mind, and it's still flooding my mind. After a few hours of walking, I realized that it was nightfall. I didn't want to go home tonight. I needed time to cool down and think things through. Going to the dacha was not an option, as the car wouldn't start and the buses didn't run. If I went to my parents, I would be flooded with countless questions, and I wasn't ready to answer them. And if I took refuge with friends, Haley would inevitably find me if I started looking. But it wouldn't occur to anyone to look for me at your place, Peter. Don't worry, I don't expect any advice or sympathy from you. It's my own fault, just like Eugene's, for not getting everything in time so as not to rely on connections and promotion by unethical means. The next day, Igor left early in the morning. His story of infidelity resonated with me for some reason, and I wanted to share it with you. But I held back, thinking that you, like me, would be interested to know how it ended. Relying on Igor to inform me of his decision and the resolution of the situation, I waited patiently for news. A week passed, and today Igor called me again. Hello, Petrovich, he said in an even and unemotional voice. I don't know how long it will take, but I foolishly screwed up the situation for myself. Curious, I asked, so what did you decide? I'm not ready to go through everything again, so please don't ask for details, he replied. In the end, I decided to try to forget everything with Inga, as if nothing had happened. After all, have we really lived all these years for nothing? What about your work? Again, I inquired. What about it? Replied Igor. Jenka helped me get a job, albeit through connections. I was officially promoted with a little help from Inga. If you compare pride with the future of our children, well, things are still the same for now. We'll see what happens in the future.